Hello, fellow church boys. Welcome to St. Robert's Day Game Pickup Podcast episode number 26. And today I want to talk about the topic of hook point, because I see beginners make very, very silly mistakes over and over again. I see those mistakes when guys ask questions in our Day Game Church group chat, or when my students send me in-field recordings on where I coach my students in field. I see them repeating the mistakes, and those are fairly basic mistakes, and most beginners make those mistakes. Even guys who have been learning the game for a while, they keep repeating those mistakes. And a lot of infield coaching that I do with my students is actually, in the beginning, is focused on the hook point, on getting to hook point, understanding when a girl is hooked, and understanding what to do after the hook point, because you have to understand the hook point and you have to change your game accordingly before and after the hook point. It's the basis of calibration. Understanding how the girl is responding. If she's responding one way, you change your behavior. If she's responding another way, you change your behavior again in a different direction. And you behave completely different before and after the hook point. If before hook point, you act as you should act after the hook point, ask questions, have a generic, normal conversation, the set will be pretty boring. But if after the hook point, if after she's asking you questions, after you realize she's interested in you, you keep acting like in the beginning of the set, like before hook point, you keep stacking, you keep telling interesting stories, you keep teasing, well, all she will remember as is an interesting dude she met on the street, a really funny guy, made her laugh, but she will not go out with you. So that's the topic of today. Before we get into the conversation, let's talk about a project that I'm working on right now. When I was in Belgrade, Serbia, I spent some time with Mr. T there, and we came up with this new project. We are working on a new platform for learning the game. Mr. T is an IT guy, so he's working on the code and I'm working on the content. It will be a new platform where you have different courses on different topics about the game. And we will start with 2 topics, and in the beginning it will be free. I have no idea what we will do with it afterwards. We just agreed to start with it, see what happens when we get 1,000 people to sign up, and when we will decide what to do with it afterwards. We will find ways to help you with that. And the first 2 topics we want to cover is texting. There will be 2 courses on texting. One is the basic texting, what to send to the girl after you get her number, when to send, what to do when you take the number in the evening. Should you send the message the same evening? Should you send the message the next evening? What to do when she responds, what messages to send, how to chat with girls, what pings to use, when to ask a girl out. All the basic stuff. That will be part 1, and part 2 will be a bit more in-depth conversation about texting, what to do if a girl doesn't respond, what to do if she takes a long time to respond, what are bad examples of texting, etc., etc. And that's topic 1, texting. Second topic will be either on dates or about sets, about day game sets, but I haven't decided on this yet. It depends on what you guys will want to see more. So what I want you to do is think about what's the biggest thing you're struggling with right now in day game. If it's about texting, what's the biggest thing you're struggling with texting? Are you struggling with something on dates or in sets? What's your I don't know. Yeah, what's your biggest challenge right now? And send me an email, shoot me an email. If you are on my mailing list, then all the emails that you are receiving, just respond to any of the emails. Say, hey, this is about the project you're working on. Here is what I'm struggling with right now. And I will collect all of those answers. And I will look whether I get more questions about dates or I get more questions about day game sets. And I will create a free course to help you fix these mistakes. we should have the content and the platform ready around New Year's. So probably shortly after New Year's, it will go live. But you will get notifications about that in the group chat and in the mailing list, and probably in the podcast as well. So just keep posted, and you'll find out when it's live. So now let's talk about hook point. And you understand that before and after the hook point, we behave completely differently, or it's good to behave differently. When you open a girl, when you start a conversation with the girl on the street, you cannot just ask boring questions like, oh, hey, how are you, where are you going? Those are very, very boring questions, and she will most likely not stay and talk to you. You will have to use assumption stacking that I will explain a bit later, because I don't think assumption stacking has been explained enough in day game content lately. You have to tease, you have to kind of entertain her, and she becomes more and more and more interested, and then there is the magic of hook point. And after the hook point, you completely change your behavior, you tone down, you become more chilled out, you let her more invest, you show less emotion. And the importance of understanding this, why it is so important, if you act before the hook point in a chilled out manner, waiting for her to invest, well, she will not invest. You're just a random dude who came up to her. She doesn't really care. She's going somewhere. There aren't enough emotions in the set, so it will be a bad set and it won't go anywhere. But if after the hook point you keep acting like a crazy monkey, jumping around and, entertaining her, then you're just an interesting dude, but she will not go out with you because she will think, oh yeah, he was an interesting dude, but what the fuck, he was so crazy. Will he be like that on a date? That's a bit awkward. So after the hook point, you have to show that you are a normal, regular dude. And the first thing you have to understand about hook point is, well, how do you understand that she is actually hooked? How do you understand that she wants to talk to you? And it might seem like a simple question, but actually guys don't really understand this. I get a lot of questions. Wait, but she didn't ask me a question, but I could clearly see from the side that the girl was hooked. Or in many cases, girl asks you a question, but she isn't really hooked. So let's talk a bit about how to recognize a hook point. Of course, the most common way to recognize that she is hooked is she asks you a question. She asks you, where are you from? What do you do? What is your name? Or any other question, and she's interested in you. But the thing is, why this is a bit tricky. In some countries, girls are very polite. And they will very soon after you open them, they'll ask, oh, where are you from? And they will ask it out of politeness, but they aren't really interested in where you're from. And if you've done day game for enough time, enough sets, and you kind of have understood how girls work, then yes, you will see that you will recognize which times it's a real question, which times it's really just her being polite. So let's talk about other indicators that she is hooked. First is, well, she crosses her legs. Crossing her legs means she doesn't really have to go anywhere. She's there to stay. She's not looking to move away. That's number two is she doesn't say I have to go after 2 seconds of silence. So if there is a bit of silence, a girl will often say I have to go as soon as there's this moment of tension where you don't know what to say. Imagine you are stressed, but imagine how a girl feels when she doesn't know what to say when a stranger approaches her. And as soon as the tension rises, she will try to eject from the set. She will say she has to go. Well, if there is a bit of silence and a girl doesn't say I have to go, she is hooked. And the third way you can recognize she's hooked, well, she isn't moving away slowly. Sometimes girls, they'll talk to you, and then as soon as they shut up, they'll take half step away or move tiny bit away, just turning slowly away. Well, if she's doing that, she wants to leave. She's not hooked. She's not interested. You have to do a bit more work. You have to tease her more. You have to spike more emotions, but more on that later. And another way, number 4 is she feels the silences. If there is a silence of a few seconds, you can see that she finds a way to fill the silence. She asks you another question. She says something. So that's another way. So these were 5 ways you can recognize a hook point. The first one was the most common one. She asks you a question, and then 4 other ways. And then there are, of course, many tiny signs you can pay attention to. For example, if her phone rings, does she answer the phone, has a conversation, or does she drop the call and keeps talking to you? It doesn't necessarily mean she's hooked, but it's still a good sign. And then there are the sets where a girl seems to be really interested. She likes your stories. She's kind of giving you topics. She says what she does. But when you try to go deeper, she doesn't really want to go deeper. But still, she seems very interested in you. But she doesn't ask questions and doesn't invest much about like, let's say you told a story and you were expecting her to say something in response. She says something short, but doesn't really tell much about her. Well, this is not a hook point, even though she looks really interested. Most likely she has a boyfriend and she's simply getting validation through your attention. So pay attention. Just note that there are cases like this. But then again, it's a bit tricky because she might just be really, really shy. But the more you do day game, the more experience you get, the better you will be at recognizing what's what. In which case should you keep going on with the set, and in which cases you should just eject. So how should you act before hook point, and why? Let's start with why. Well, she doesn't care about you, and she shouldn't really care. Some girls will get intrigued by the fact that you open them just because no one does that, and they're happy to get attention, but that's very rare, and no one cares about your open. They care about what kind of a person you are, and you can demonstrate by your behavior before the hook point. Many guys that start out and try to overcome approach anxiety, at least that for me this was a big deal. For me it was very, very hard to do my first open. I was going out almost every day for 2 hours a day, and I didn't do a single open for 2 weeks. I just went out with intention to do an open, and I just couldn't. And it took me 2 weeks before I did my first open, and I did it just because the previous night I slept with a random girl. It's a long story. It's not that important, but I slept with a random girl. I came out of her place in the morning. I was walking home, and I was in such a good mood that I just saw this chick and I just opened. But it took a long time, and it seemed that approach anxiety is the biggest challenge in day game. And many guys that start out, they've told me that they have the same feeling. They think, oh, well, I'm this awesome guy. Now I overcame approach anxiety. Now they should be really happy to talk to me. Now they should go on dates with me. They should sleep with me. I'm so brave. Oh, my God. But the reality is approach anxiety is just the first obstacle. It's a hard obstacle, but it's just the beginning. And you have to demonstrate that you are a high-value dude, that you are actually an interesting dude, or you have to become one. Just as if you had abundance, when you have many, many girls in your life, you won't sleep with a girl. You won't sleep with any girl. You will start thinking, well, do I want to sleep with her? Let's say you go on a date and she behaves kind of princessy, and you don't know how to deal with that, and you give away the frame, and you go on 5 dates with the girl before you sleep with her. When you're starting out, you will do shit like that. You will go on too many dates. The girl will have the frame. You will maybe take girls where they want to go before you learn game. But when you learn game and when you become better and better at dating more interesting guy, and a girl starts behaving like that, well, first of all, you will know how to deal with that, so that she doesn't behave like that, so that you keep the frame, which is actually what you want and what the girl wants as well. She wants you to keep the frame, but that's a topic for another podcast, for another discussion. But the second thing that will happen is you will choose not to go out with some girls. You will realize, well, she's boring, she's not, you don't like her as a person, you don't think she's hot enough, whatever. And just as that is reality, it's also the other direction is the reality. Girls have abundance in general. Almost any girl has many options of guys that want to go out with her. And the fact that you overcame your fear and started talking to her in the street doesn't mean much. It's different, but you still have to be a normal guy. So let's take an example. Imagine you see this really beautiful girl and you open her and she turns out to be a psycho killer, and you realize that, well, will you sleep with her? No, you will get away. You will not see her. And it's the same. You open the girl and wow, it's brave, it's amazing, but she realizes you are a really strange dude or you're really boring, so she will not see you anymore. She will not talk to you anymore. She will not give you the number and come out. So that's why you have to think about how you behave before and after the hook point. And I've written down 4 ways you can show that you are an interesting guy, that you're different, that it's worth talking to you before the hook point. 4 things you can do. And first is it's rather what not to do. Do not ask boring questions. So don't ask those questions. Oh, hey girl, how are you? Where are you going? Oh, what do you do? Oh, you're, I don't know, a lawyer. Oh, nice. What kind of a lawyer? Da 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 da. All those boring things that guys normally ask girls. They've heard that many times, and it's just really, really boring for them. So do not ask questions before the hook point. Not even don't ask boring questions before hook point. Don't ask any questions before hook point. That should be your rule. There are exceptions to the rule, but what I see guys doing is they make those exceptions all the time and they just ask really boring questions. So what should you do in general? You should use assumption stacking. Nowadays it's called stacking, but originally it was called assumption stacking. And let's talk a bit about what that is. That was a concept explained very well in a product that back in the days when daygame.com was the big thing, the big material everyone followed, they had this huge video course, really, really long video course, kind of way too long, but explained everything very deeply. They explained assumption stacking and what it is. Assumption stacking is a great way to find topics to talk about. It's not that different from questions. So let's say you stop a girl and you give her a compliment and you want to ask what does she do for a living. So you might ask what do you do? Like, are you a lawyer or what? And that's a boring way to start a conversation. But what you can do, instead of asking a question, you can make assumptions about the girl. You can guess something about her. So you could say, you look very serious. You look like a crazy lawyer who spends her days from 9 to 5 sitting in a serious office and, destroying businesses in courtrooms. And instead of asking a boring question, you make this assumption about her. You make a guess about her. Or you might ask, where are you going? Which is a boring question. And instead of that, you could make an assumption. You could say, oh, you look very chilled out. I saw you and I thought, oh my God, she must be going to a yoga session or to meet her friends for drinks. Again, you are just guessing what is she about to do. And those are assumptions. And when you do one assumption after another, so you do one, then you might do another. That's called assumption stacking. You stack assumptions. You do one assumption, like she has a serious office job, and she says, yeah, I have a serious office job, but she doesn't tell you what. So you might say, yeah, I imagine you're like a crazy lawyer or like an intense accountant being really creative. And that's a stack following the previous stack. The first stack was you look like a serious office person. She says, oh, yes, I am. I spend my days from 9 to 5 working in an office. And you go deeper on the same topic. Oh, yeah, I can imagine you being a crazy lawyer or like a accountant, da-da-da-da-da. So you don't ask, what is it that you do in the office? You assume, you guess what she does. And then when you get a topic, when she tells you what she does, then you can go into storytelling, into teasing. And understanding assumption stacking is vital to not run out of things to say. If you got a topic, if you found out what she's doing or where she's going or anything else that you wanted to talk about, if you find that, then yes, you will go to the storytelling. And that's a different topic for a bit later. But if you run out of things because you spoke about the topic that you had. You spoke about her job, you spoke about where she's going, you had a bit of a chat about that, and then you don't know what to say. Well, actually, there is a really simple trick that you can do. You can look at the girl, notice anything, and make a comment about that. I've had cases where we were speaking about books and reading books and bookshops. Somehow nowadays no one reads anymore because she came out of a bookstore. And we kind of ran out of things to talk about that topic. And I noticed she had pearl earrings. And my assumption stack was, oh, I see you have pearl earrings. You must be very serious, because only the serious people, the very polite ones, wear pearl earrings. She says, oh yeah, I'm actually da-da-da-da-da-da. And we get another topic and we get a conversation going on this topic. So there are two parts to assumption stacking. One is actually using the stacks that you use all the time, her profession, where she's from, geography, her mood, where she's going, where she's coming from. Those are the typical ones. But when you run out of things to talk about those, boom, just look at her, notice something, make an assumption about that. Could be a simple thing like, those red wool things girls have around their wrists because of, yoga or whatever. I've made assumption stacks. I've made assumptions based on that and built conversations on that. Okay, you got the topic. She says she's an accountant. She says she's going to the gym or whatever. Let's take an example of profession. So what do? You start teasing, you start storytelling, you don't talk boringly about it. There is the basic framework that most people know that you can use. You can say simply, she says she's a lawyer. You can say, well, when I think about lawyers, I think about ABC, and you tell three things. This is like a basic thing that most guys in day game should know. And you will say, well, when I think about lawyers, I think about how crazy educated you are, how much you have to work, how crazy long work days you have. You're the hardest working people I know. But then I also know you guys are the craziest party people. When you are not working, you just have to let the pressure go, and it usually ends as a crazy party. So you'll say two serious things and one thing as a tease, or a story that I have used a lot and that I tell my students. And this is a true story because it's a story about one of my ex-girlfriends. She was a lawyer, and I knew that lawyers are serious and party people. So when a girl says, "Oh, I'm a lawyer," I'll say, "Oh, damn, no, that's so fucked up." And as soon as I say, "Oh, that's so fucked up," she'll say, "Oh, what, why?" And I say, oh yeah, my ex, she was a lawyer, so I used to hang out with many lawyers, and I learned two things about you guys. Well, the first is, you guys are the hardest working people I know. I mean, unless you have master's degree, all you can do is, well, you can make coffee and you can copy documents and do some basic stuff. So you have to be really hardworking if you want to get ahead as a lawyer. But the second thing I learned about you guys, you are the craziest party people I've seen. And yeah, I know you don't go to clubs usually and do the crazy shit, but you have those small lawyer parties with your friends, with Aperol Spritz and those small cakes that girls love to make, and have you prepare everything on your own. It's fucking amazing. So you're like that, serious by the day and crazy by the night. Boom, and after a story like this, she will start to invest. The little secret about this story that I teach my students, and again, I will explain this, how it works, but you have to understand one thing. You can use canned material, fake stories as a backup option, and you can use it when you're learning. It's very, very good when you are learning day game. But the goal of the day game isn't to learn all the best fake stories in the world and keep telling them to sleep with girls. Those are just the training wheels. And once you start getting some results, once you start getting success, you can start dropping the fake stories. You can start telling real stories. I mean, just an example, I have another real story, and that's a true story. Let's say she's a doctor, and I'll say, oh, well, that's crazy because I know a few things about doctors because I used to have many doctors around me, which is true. And I will again say, yeah, I know you are really, really hardworking because, I mean, you have to study for 6 years, and only after 6 years you can decide what kind of a doctor you'll be. At least that's true in Latvia, I think. And then I'll say, but yeah, I had this childhood friend who used to go on those rafting trips on the crazy rivers, and there were many medics doing that. And what I found out, what I realized is, when the medics were drinking, they weren't drinking vodka, they weren't drinking whiskey, they were drinking the alcohol you use for medicine, like the special stuff that you cannot really buy in a store, which is like 90-something% alcohol. That's fucking crazy. And I will use a story like this, and then again I'll say, so you're crazy serious by the day, and then when you relax, you go hardcore. And boom, she will start investing on the topic, telling that, yeah, it's like that, and tell me a story of how she relaxes or anything like that. But that's a real story. So I have a real lawyer story. It's not a fake story. It's stuff that I've really seen in my life. And this story about doctors, it's also a real story. But while you are learning, before you have those stories, what you can do is you can use the same story regardless of the profession. So take the lawyer story that I just told. She can say she's into sales, and you can say, oh my God, no, that's so fucked up because my ex was in sales and I used to hang out with many salespeople, and there are those two things I learned about you guys. And you tell the same story. It's a fake story that you can use with any profession. But remember, when you start getting results, day game isn't about fake stories. Day game is about making you into a person who can talk to people, who is interesting, who is a high value dude. And don't be the guy who keeps faking being high value for years. If you're getting results, then drop the training wheels and come up with real shit. Learn to talk. Because what many guys are learning, they're learning to be robots, and that's just I don't know. I don't think that's good day game. If you want to be really high level, you will have to actually learn to improvise and talk to people. You can't just rely on canned material. You will get results, but I don't think that's high level day game. That's just I don't know, old school pickup in a modern version. Again, sorry for repeating it so many times. If you're learning, keep using fake stories. Keep using copy-paste stories. It's much easier when you are learning. And the fourth thing that you have to do before the hook point, remember to talk about the girl. Don't talk about yourself. Well, you can tell some short story that's not actually about yourself, because when I tell a story, I had this ex. Well, it's kind of story about me, because that's the story about ex, so it's about me. But not really. It's a story about the topic, and it's a story I use to tease the girl. So talk about the girl. Don't talk about you. Don't talk about the city you are in or anything else. Whatever topic you are talking about, it's connected to her. Because when you day game in other cities, if you talk about the city you're in, well, she will start giving you tourist advice, and that's just boring. And make sure you don't go into sketchy things like that. Make sure you talk about her. So those are 4 things you should do before the hook point. Don't ask boring questions. Use assumption stacks. Tease and tell stories. And talk about her, not about you or anything else. Oh, and by the way, one thing I want to add, when you tell the stories, of course you will tease the girl, but another thing you can do, you can DHV, you can demonstrate higher value, but kind of under the radar. You can say, I used to work with a lot of doctors because of my business, or when you can say, I used to work with a lot of people from this industry, from US or from, name other countries that people like. Whenever I have a real thing that I've done that I can add in the conversation to demonstrate that I have an interesting life, I will do it. But make sure you aren't bragging. Make sure you aren't just being I work with people from all over the world. I work with medics, I'm into business. That's just boring. That's what everyone tries to do. Everyone tries to prove that they're interesting, and that's just bad. You tease the girl to make her prove that, well, she's not actually a crazy party girl, or she's different, or you challenge her, or you make her qualify, and you are making the girl work. The idea is to make her prove that she is cool enough, but actually under the radar you can demonstrate higher value by dropping in a few words here and there in your stories that tell something interesting about you. That's a little trick you can use. Okay, so you did all of this and now she's interested. She has showed several of the previously mentioned signs that she's hooked. She's here to stay. She wants to talk to you. She asks you a question, your name, etc. So what and why do you do after the hook point? It's time to chill the fuck out. Before the hook point, you were a bit of an attraction monkey. You stack about strange topics. Maybe you teased her about being hangover, being high. I do that a lot. Many of my students accuse girls of being hangover or high. And it was just jokes and teases and silly topics. Enough of that. After the hook point, it's time to be normal. Have a chat, figure out something about her, like a few things. Tell a few things about yourself and make sure she's interesting and make sure she's compliant to what you do and what you suggest. You don't have to just stack anymore. Now you can start asking questions. So you spoke about her job. Let's stick with the lawyer example. And you can say, oh, actually, I never understood why people choose such serious professions. How did you decide to become a lawyer? And that's actually a qualification question. She has to qualify why she became a lawyer. Or maybe she's into horse riding. You could say, I never understood people who ride horses. Why did you choose horse riding? What do you like about it? And boom, she has to start explain some stuff to you. And when she's explaining, she's kind of qualifying. She's kind of proving herself, explaining herself. If she, for example, has a hobby you don't understand, you don't like, you can say, oh, I don't like chess. If she plays chess, you can say, I don't like chess. For me, it's too serious. Boom, you're challenging her opinions. You're making her explain why chess is a really interesting thing and why maybe she does it, why you should do it. Challenge her once. So a chess example, that was a challenge. You can say, oh, I don't like chess, if she starts saying how she loves chess. Or make her qualify once. Let's say how you can make a girl qualify. After you've had a bit of a chat, you can say, you sound very serious. Do you have a fun side? What do you do for fun? And when she explains what she does for fun, she is qualifying. But challenge her once. And make her qualify once. Don't challenge her all the time. Don't make her qualify all the time. Don't tease her all the time. Don't be an attraction monkey. That's before teasing all the time and being an attraction monkey. That's before the hook point. After the hook point, do it just a little bit and have a normal conversation. Make your intent clear. What I do is I often say, by the way, I know this is very random. People don't normally talk to each other on the street. But I just thought you look really cute. I had to say hi because sometimes a girl just looks good, but sometimes she is interesting. And I do that later in a set when maybe I run out of things to say and I might say this. And then you can go for the close. You can just say, okay, I'll let you go. I gotta go, you gotta go. But at another time, we will go for a beer. What's your name? Take her number. Boom. Or go for an Insta date. And that's it. There isn't really much more magic after the hook point. So topics to talk about, all the basic stuff. Her job, her school, hobbies, travel, what she's up to, where she's coming from, where she's going. Well, actually, the reason to talk about where she's going to is figuring out her logistics. Maybe she's just going to sit in a cafe and read a book or something else boring, and you can go for an Insta date. Maybe she had in Prague, in the last day I spent in Prague, the last time I was there, I was out near my Airbnb doing some sets, and I saw this really, really hot Chinese girl. And I opened and I figured out she spent all day walking around the city She is on a solo trip to Europe, in Prague. She was in Berlin because of her business, but came to Prague alone. She explored Prague all day. Now she's going back to her hostel. Boom, I ended up having a same-day lay with her a few days later. So figure out where she's going to find out her logistics and go for Insta dates. Go for those same-day lays. As you see now, there is a big difference between how we act before hook point and after the hook point, or how we should act before and after the hook point. And it's a very, very big mistake to act in a wrong way before hook point or after the hook point, mixing those things up, behaving the same way through all the set. But what I want to say in the end, it's a bit more of an advanced thing, but I'll still say it. Attraction can rise and fall. Like attraction can really go high before the hook point, and then after the hook point you start having a bit of a more chilled out conversation. Attraction might fall down, so you have to be really careful with that. Don't fall into nice guy conversations. If you fall too much into the nice guy topics in a boring way, attraction will fall, and that's why you still have to tell some stories after the hook point and still tease once in a while, challenge her, make her qualify a little bit. Make sure the attraction stays high also after the hook point. But as I said, that's more of an advanced thing. That's probably for guys I've coached before. That's for guys that are already getting some results. And a simple way you can work on your sets is, when you analyze your sets, simply ask yourself, where am I? What's the attraction level? Did she hook? Is she still hooked? Or maybe she has decided I'm a boring guy. What's the comfort level? Does she feel safe with me? What should I have done next? What's the next story I could have told? What's the next stack? What's the next question? Where are you in a set, and what should be your next move? I actually still do this on dates, especially with physical escalation. When I'm sometimes thinking, well, should I escalate? Should I not? I really just pause and I think, okay, where am I at the moment? How is she compliant? If she is compliant, I should escalate further, even if I feel that it's kind of strange, I don't want to do it. I know that, no, she's compliant, I'm just being scared for whatever reason, I should escalate further, and boom, I go escalate and everything is fine. So that's it. That's all I wanted to tell about hook point in this podcast episode. And as I said in the beginning, I'm working on a new platform for learning day game, and I will be covering two topics in the beginning. First will be texting. So send me what are your biggest challenges in texting right now. Send it over to me in the email. And I'm thinking about the second topic, whether it will be dates or sets. So send me your stories. What are your biggest problems in the day game right now? Are you struggling in the sets? If so, what exactly are you struggling in on dates? If so, what exactly are you struggling with on dates? And just reply to any email that I've sent to you if you are on my mailing list, and explain me what's your story. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I'll go enjoy this fucking rainy day in Bucharest, Romania, where I've been for 1.5 weeks, and I'll be here until mid-December, but I will go to a shopping mall to do some day game sets.